We are ending our series on momentum for life. So let's go through it. Drive. We've been talking about drive. You remember a parked car. You can't drive a parked car, so you got to put your life in drive, momentum for life. So the D was devotion to God. R was readiness for lifelong learning. I was investing in key relationships. Last week we talked about visioning, V, visioning for the future. And today is E, eating and exercise. Okay, that's what I thought. At least that's what I'm thinking anyway. It's a good thing to be talking about right with Thanksgiving right around the corner. Woo! We're in trouble today. All right, so we're going to talk about eating and exercise. I found this interesting. Of the 17 developed nations, the wealthiest developed nations in the world, we are at the top, near the top of the list as one of the wealthiest nations in the world. And you would think with all our access to medical care, gyms, fitness equipment, fitness clothes, all these things, you would think that Americans are some of the healthiest people in the world. Would you not think that, right? Well, here's a quote from the National Research Council Institute of Medicine. Americans die younger and sicker than citizens of other developed countries. In an assessment of health citizens of the 17 wealthiest countries, the U.S. came in at number 16 out of 17. We got all this great, abundant, blessed resources, and yet we're the sickest and we die younger than other developed nations. What's going on? What's happening? So I started to think about this, and I think that part of it is our society. I look at it as a trap. I think we're in a trap. It's mental, it's emotional, it's about eating, it's about exercise, and I think we're in this trap that we get trapped up into. So here's what I think the trap looks like. The first one is we're presented with this very unrealistic body image in our society. I mean, we walk by the magazines in the checkout counter line, and there's these beautifully edited images of men and women in fitness magazines, and I want to stress edited, lighted, makeup, photoshopped. When we watch a movie and we see, these guys with their shirts off or ladies in these clothes, and we sit there and we look at these images, but those are also edited images, folks. Makeup, lighting, and then a video editor takes and splices the film just right so you see the best angles of every person and the best shots of every person. So this projected image into our society is this perfect image, and actually it's an unattainable, unrealistic image. I don't look anything like those guys on there, right? I'm looking out, and none of us do, because God created us unique. God gave us our genetics through our parents, and we all have positive strengths and weaknesses in body image, but we will never attain that body image that's being projected by our society. It's just unrealistic for us. We need to start thinking about our body image in terms of what's realistic for the genes, for the body that God has given me, not the image that society wants me to have. That's different. So you take that unrealistic image, and when we don't meet it, and when I walk by the bathroom mirror in the morning after watching a movie or I go, wow, that doesn't line up, does it? And then I start to feel what? Guilt, because I didn't eat or exercise right, or shame, or I'll never live up. And then what does that create in me? It creates an attitude within me. I go eat some more food, right? I'm a stress eater. I don't know about you guys. So that's part of it. So unrealistic body image. The next thing, then I go to turn to the food to comfort me for the shame and guilt I'm feeling about my body image, right? And we're surrounded by unhealthy food. I mean, Americans are eating out more today than they ever have before. We eat out at restaurants, and then those restaurants want to attract us in. So what kind of food do they prepare for us to get us to come to their restaurant, right? Get the triple-decker chocolate sundae, mountain lava, mountain of chocolate, whatever they call it, right? Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to entice us into the restaurant because they want to make money, and so they prepare all these wonderful foods for us that are high in fat and high in sugar and all these other wonderful things. And so we eat this stuff. Even the salads sometimes that we eat in restaurants are pretty high fat content. So we think about this. So we're turning to unhealthy foods. We're surrounded by unhealthy foods because and part of the reason we're doing that is because we're living life at an unsustainable pace. And when you don't have time to shop and prepare and plan meals that are healthy, you start to turn to convenience. And the restaurants make it convenient for us to stop in there, grab a quick bite, and then on to whatever next activity we have. And so this sets up a matter, our unsustainable pace of life is not creating the margins for us to think healthy, eat healthy, exercise, because we're too busy. And then we're in this trap. Can you see the trap that we're in? That we've kind of, society, not just to blame society, but we kind of are in this place where we can just, in this cycle, and we can spiral out of control very easily because nobody's stopping us. And so we see a culture that is sick and unhealthy and dying and struggling with type 2 diabetes and struggling with heart disease and struggling with high blood pressure, all these things because of that. So I think part of getting out of that trap starts with how we view our bodies. So if it's unrealistic, so think about what is the realistic image, or maybe what's another way to look at our bodies, to look at how we view ourselves as our bodies, not just only our spirit, body. Our body, mind, and spirit are all integrated, but think about our bodies. This is what Paul said. We heard in the scripture this morning. He said, "Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, which you have from God, and that you are not your own? For you are bought with a price, therefore glorify God in your body." According to Paul, who owns our body? God, right. As Christians, my body is not my own. And he refers to our bodies as temples. God created them. God gave us our genetics. God created these temples. Whether we like them or approve of them or not, they are God's temple. They are given to us by God. They are a gift from God. And how would you treat God's temple? How would you treat God's house? How would you treat God's church? How would you treat it? You would treat it with respect, right? Reverence. You would honor it, right? And that's what Paul says, honor God with your bodies. So it's about something, part of it is about thinking about ownership, because a lot of times we think, this is my body, I can do what I want with it. That's what we always hear. So I want you to think about this. A neighbor, he had a pickup truck. I call it a pick-em-up truck, because I grew up in Damascus. That's just what we called it back there. And so he would say, anytime you want to use my pickup truck to do anything, just let me know. And he would always easily just hand the keys over to me. And it was an old 1980s Ford pickup truck, and it had dinged up dents on it. It was, not in great shape, but it could get stuff to the dump. It could go haul a load of mulch to the house. It could do all kinds of things. So I was always borrowing the truck. And so when I returned the truck to him, even though it was an old beat-up truck, do you think I returned it to him better than the way I got it? Right? How did I return it to him? I returned it to him with a full tank of gas. And if I put mulch or dirtied up the back of the bed, I'd get out the hose and I'd hose out the back. Now, he wouldn't have done that, but because I didn't own it, because it didn't belong to me, I treated it with respect, and I treated it differently than if it was my truck. And so thinking about who owns our bodies may help us to treat it with more respect. And I think seeing our bodies as God's temples, helps us to see ourselves differently and with more respect for the gift of the body that God has given us. And so think about that as a part of your own body image, not about what is projected on the screen, but think about the fact that you are a gift of God. Your body's a gift to you, to be treated with respect. It's on loan, right? How many of us stay on our bodies forever? They're on loan. So think about that. The other thing Paul says here is, he says, all things are lawful for me. He says, I can eat whatever I want to eat. He's talking about dietary laws and eating meat because that wasn't kosher. So he's saying that, everything's lawful for me, but I will not be dominated by anything. What he's saying is that when it comes to my appetite and when it comes to my lust as a human being, I'm not going to let those things dominate me and my behavior. I'm going to dominate them. I am going to master my appetite and my lust, and that's where he goes in this passage. We're not to be dominated by anything, but we're to dominate those desires within us and to be in control of them and master them. So I know this is Thanksgiving's coming up next week, and I don't know if this happens to you, but I grew up at Thanksgiving, and you notice at Thanksgiving We used to go to my grandmother's house at Thanksgiving, and it was great. I'm going to make you all hungry right now. Mashed potatoes with homemade gravy. The stuffing, the sweet potatoes with the marshmallows, all these things. And Grandma would have this big spread. And so you would pass the food around the table, and then at the end of that first go-around, what would Grandma say to you? Here, have some more. Have seconds, right? And she would go around and she just keep and as soon as your plate was empty, it was like, here, let me put something on your plate, right? I loved my grandmother when I was 20. I loved my grandmother when I was 18, 16. My body metabolism was at this point, I could eat it all, and it just burned right off, right? And so Grandma would do this, and I was actually talking with Laura, our pastor's assistant, this week. She said it's called a food pusher. I thought that was a great way to look at it. I was like, there are food pushers, around us. Anybody know a food pusher? Maybe you're a food pusher, right? Because we push food on other people because we're trying to be nice and hospitable. But I'll tell you the reason why I push food on people when they come to our house. Because I know if it left in my house, I'm going to eat it all. So I'm going to push it off on you to get you to take it home or eat it so I don't eat it, right? So I'm a little bit selfish food pusher, right? But Grandma was trying to be hospitable. She was showing love. She felt like food was a way to show love to us. Because she grew up in the Depression when they didn't have anything. And they didn't know when their next meal was going to be, right? And so to have a big meal was a blessing to them and an abundance. And so they were always saying, this is a blessing to us. And so they saw it that way. But how many of us are going to go without food tomorrow or next week or next month or in January? Well, none of us are going into hibernation. So we don't need all of that. But yet we're still in a place that keeps pushing food our way. So think about think about this. So what I'm getting at is, I'm coaching you for Thanksgiving. When the food pusher comes, right? Say, no, here's what I want to suggest. Say, it was a wonderful meal. It was a great meal. So compliment the chef, compliment the cook, and at the same time say, I couldn't possibly have any more. It's okay to say no, but just do it in a way that compliments them, because that's part of it too, right? We're afraid of hurting their feelings, so we think if we reject them, or we use that as an excuse to eat more, right? Well, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, so I'll have another piece of cheesecake. Okay. So, you got that? Got it? Good. All right. Moving on. So how do we maintain? So if this is a temple, and we're in control of this temple that God has given us, we're stewards of this temple, so how are we going to do temple maintenance? That's what I'm going to talk about, temple maintenance. How many people would not take care of their houses? Nobody, right? Everybody takes care of their houses. We invest in it. We pay the mortgage. We mow the lawn. We fix the gutters when they're full of leaves. We fix dishwashers when they break. We do all those things to maintain the value in our homes. Are these bodies valuable? Absolutely. So are we treating them as valuable things that we've been given? And how we treat them, how we maintain them is important. So I also enlisted the help this week. I went and sometimes you have to talk to other people. Remember we talked about readiness for lifelong learning? And how everybody has someone to teach. Do you remember talking about that when you were here? We have something to learn from everybody. So I met with Jacob Huey this week. Jacob Huey is a college student. He's training to be a personal trainer. He's also a weightlifter. And so I said, I need to learn from the next generation what's the latest in fitness, what's the latest in health, because this is called reverse mentoring. Sometimes we think mentoring is always about going to somebody older and experienced, but sometimes we can go learn from people younger than us and learn from them. So I sat down with Jacob this week and I said, Jacob, what does health look like today? What does health look like to you as a young person as you're training? So he made this he had a lot of recommendations, but this was one that I wanted to pass on to you. He said, as he's studying to be a personal trainer, one of the American Council on Exercise recommends exercising this. Goal number 1, 30 minutes a day of aerobic exercise 5 days a week. 30 minutes of aerobic exercise 5 days a week. Now, key word here is aerobic. What is aerobic exercise? Aerobic exercise is when it's hard to have a conversation. So if you're running or on a treadmill or on an elliptical or on a bike or even walking could be aerobic for some of us based on our level of exercise and fitness. So if I'm walking fast, I can actually get to an aerobic level because I might be able to talk to the person next to me, but as I'm talking to them, I might have to catch my breath to get to the next sentence. Does that make sense? So when you're just at that level of just being out of breath to have that conversation. Here's all, anybody here running marathons, triathlons here? I'm going to give you a racing tip this morning. You want to pass somebody, you want to slow them down, get them talking. Because they'll naturally, as they engage in conversation, what they'll do is they'll naturally slow down because they have to catch their breath, so they slow down to talk to you. So just start asking questions of the person next to you. That'll slow them down, then you just take off, all right? It's a strategy. That's how you win races. I'm kidding. So, but that's part of it. Aerobic is getting to that place where you have to catch your breath. You can do that walking. You can do that on elliptical. It doesn't matter. So do whatever works for you in exercise. You don't have to run a marathon to do this. You don't have to go run a triathlon to do this. Just 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, just get aerobic. And then number 2 is a eating goal. So in eating, Jacob was saying, focus on balanced diet of protein, fat, and carbs for your energy level. Do you hear that last part? For your energy level. Because protein, fat, and carbs, we all need all of those. Are for our bodies to function. They're all sources of energy for us. A lot of diets are like cut out eat all protein or cut out all the fat or cut out carbs, and these fad diets won't last or sustain us because we actually need all 3 of these in our diet to help sustain us and give us energy. Now, when I was training for triathlons about 30 pounds ago, I was able to eat whatever I wanted when I was training. When I was training at that level and I was exercising 6 out of 7 days a week, I was going aerobic at least 60 to 90 minutes every day in my training. So it didn't matter what I ate. I could eat whatever. I could eat a stack of waffles, stack of pancakes, put some gravy on top of those pancakes, sausage. I could eat all that stuff and I would lose weight because my energy level was higher than the amount of food I could put in my body. That was where I got my energy, right? So I started to think about food as energy. Think about food equaling energy. And I learned that food is energy. So how much energy do I need to perform this activity? So if I'm living a sedentary lifestyle, how much energy do I need? Not much. If I'm a very active lifestyle, training for a marathon, training for a triathlon, I'm going to need more energy, and I'm going to need more fuel for my body to do that type of exercise. So you have to assess where your energy level is every day and then match your food intake to the actual energy you're going to need within that day or next day. Think about how much energy am I going to need this week? And then adjust your food intake around protein, carbs, and fat to that level of energy. So think about that. So eating that balanced diet. So here's how you can learn to do that, is read the label. If you're going to think about calories are measures of energy. Let's back up one slide. So calories are measures of energy, and they come in the form of protein, fat, and carbs. This is the average daily allowance of these 3 things that the average American at an average activity level needs. So if you're sedentary, these numbers go down. If you're more active, these numbers would go up. So again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical person, so go talk to a doctor or a medical person at what would be right for you, because this might not be heart healthy. If you have a heart condition, you might want to lower the fat and some other things, and so you have to adapt that to your certain health situation. But this is just an average, because this creates energy. That's how much energy you need on a daily basis on the average. So looking at that, 50 grams of protein, 70 grams of fat, 310 grams of carbs. You got that? So I'm not going to pick on Thanksgiving anymore. Praise Jesus. Everybody's like, amen. No more. Yeah, that's right. No more about Thanksgiving, Matt. Won't eat. We'll all sit at the table like, I won't eat anything. So here's what I will pick on. My favorite burrito. This is a burrito you and I can get at a local store, local restaurant. I can go in. It's very fast. I go in. They put it all together for me. I take it on the go, eat it in the car, spill some cheese on my tie. So I can do that. So here's what you end up with if you eat this burrito. This is a burrito. I love cheese and I love sour cream. So this is how I would prepare the burrito if I really wanted it the way I wanted it. Is that what I'm saying? So there's 1,280 calories in this burrito. That's about half of what I need for the day. And then notice the fat. Fat, 49 grams. How much fat do I need on a daily average? 70 grams. I got 49 in this burrito. That's about 70% of my fat intake. Go down to total carbohydrates, 146 grams. That's half of 50% of what I need in terms of carbs. There are good carbs and bad carbs. Good carbs are like vegetables. So if I put some peppers and onions in there, those are good carbs. The tortilla, the white flour tortilla wrapped around that burrito is not as good carbs. So it's a different type of carbs. And so that's part of that. And sugar is a part of that carbohydrate total. So more sugar, more carbs, and conversion to carbs. And then notice the protein, 64 grams of protein. How much did we need? 50. So I'm at 128% of my daily allowance of protein. So, that's if I'm lightly or moderately active that day, right? So if you're sedentary, all you need to eat that day or for the next day is one burrito. But I will tell you, that's not what I ate. I had breakfast that morning. The burrito was lunch. And then I had a dinner. My wife would get home and might have a great dinner for me. And so you add those three together, and I'm over my calorie level. I'm over everything. And I haven't even talked about snacks in between. I haven't talked about Starbucks. So all those other things that go into my daily intake of food. So moderation, 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 balance, balance, balance. We all know this. My dad used to say, eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. Because in the mornings when we need our energy start, that's what starts off our day and the energy for our day. So that's why they say that. So, you got it? Got it? All right, you still awake? There's one last thing. So how do we move from sick, unhealthy Americans who are wealthy to people of health? So I went one other place to get some advice. And those are people who are living healthy lifestyles in America today. And they're what we call our centenarians, people who live to be over 100. So I want to end by sharing some of their advice to us. So here's some of the things they said. So let's take a look at Mrs. Fletcher. Trudy Fletcher, she's 100 years of age, said this: attitude, attitude, attitude. It's all about having a positive attitude every day. And getting up every day with that positive attitude and choosing that positive attitude, she says that's what life is all about. That's what's helped her make it to 100. How about Lillian Cox, who's 107 years old? She says, eat like it's 1960. Because she remembers 1960. But what she would say is in 1960, the portions of what people ate was much smaller. They didn't have fast food restaurants. They didn't have all these restaurants and dining out and serving big portions and more sugar and more salt and all these things. And so they had smaller plates. If you go look at a plate from the 1960s, it's smaller than the plate size of today. You go look at everything they served in 1960, it's smaller portion sizes. So she said something happened after 1960 that made us just get bigger, and we supersized everything and we got fast food, and that just changed our diet and our health. And then Lois Calder, 101 years of age, says, move it or lose it, right? She's right. If we don't keep moving our bodies, if we don't keep moving our joints, if we don't keep movement in our daily routine, things will start to seize up. And then lastly, Roberta McRaney talked about her faith. She's 101 years old. She was talking about how important her faith was to her age. And she says, perhaps we are here to be an example to others in hard times. And as she was talking about her faith, she was talking about how can I make a difference in other people's lives? How can I be an example to somebody else? Not, oh, poor me. Oh, look how bad things are for me. But she was looking for ways to make a difference in the world around her. And that's her faith. Her faith helped her to do that. And her faith, and some studies have shown that people of faith live longer than people of no faith. And it's proven to see that research. So, here's what I would say, wrapping it all up, is this. Think of your body as a temple, as a gift from God. And if this is a gift from God, let's just take better care of it. Amen.